The big news today is that President Trump finally has announced his new trade tariff. So let's break it down to see how it's affecting everyone.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day, waiting for a long time. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again.
Well, the first thing is that there is going to be a 10% blanket tariff on everyone. Everyone pays right off the top 10%. But on top of that, there is something called reciprocal tariff. That means that if there is a tariff imposed on the United States for whatever product, the United States is reciprocating and implying and imposing a similar tariff. And this is not just regular tariff. It also applies to non-tariff barriers. For example, currency manipulation, unfair subsidies, VAT policies, value-added tax. This is something in Europe. Language barriers in the province of Quebec, Canada. So all these things are taken in consideration, and then the team of President Trump is saying, okay, so these are the non-barrier tariffs that these countries are applying to us, so we are going to calculate according to our magic formula this amount of tariff on them.
China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset?
To give you a taste, these are some of the tariffs that the United States is applying in other countries. For example, China, 34%, the European Union, 20%, Brazil, 10%, Canada and Mexico, 10%, India, 15%, Vietnam, 12%, Japan, 14%, and the list goes on and on. There are some charts that practically covers every trading partner of the United States. To be honest, I think this is a very narrow way of thinking of President Trump. Everyone who studies a little bit of economics probably thinks the same way, and I'm sure he has his team of advisors, but this is something that was important to him ever since Donald Trump was an actor.
I'd make our allies, forgetting about the enemies you can't talk to so easily, I'd make our allies pay their fair share.
Now, he's framing this as a national security issue, not just a trade dispute. He says that this will protect United States industries to make sure the country isn't overly dependent on foreign supply chains. But I think this will make the United States way less competitive, especially against China. Why? Because now all these countries feel excluded from the United States market. And who is the next superpower in the world? Well, the next superpower is China. And that is not all. There are more tariffs to come because there are certain industries that President Trump wants to protect. For example, the lumber industry, the copper in mining, semiconductors being produced in the United States. He wants companies that make semiconductors to move to the United States, and in order to incentivize that, he's imposing high tariff on semiconductors coming from other countries. Pharmaceutical, also, most pharmaceutical comes from India or China as well. He wants pharmaceutical companies to move to the United States. And precious metals, I really don't understand what that one is about. Now, as a Canadian, the first thing that I did when I saw the list of tariffs imposed in several countries was to look on what is the tariff applied to Canada and to Mexico, which are the big trading partners of the United States. And I didn't see them. They were already under the 10% blanket tariff, but I didn't see any additional retaliatory tariff on that. And the reason for that, I assume, is that we are already being hit with additional tariffs due to what is quote-unquote fentanyl concerns. So we already have higher tariff, and there is tariff on the import and export of automobiles. So there is another hot mess concerning Canada and Mexico.
We cannot pay the deficits of Canada, Mexico, and so many other countries.
And I don't know how this is going to be fixed, but for the moment, we can assume that there is a 10% blanket tariff being applied to Canada and Mexico. Now, one of the main purposes for President Trump to impose this tariff is because he wants companies to open manufacturing facilities in the United States. And let's be honest, he is already having some results on that. He's already been successful.
The biggest, most important company in the world of chips from Taiwan, with no investment from us, is investing $200 billion.
For example, companies such as Honda, Hyundai, Volkswagen, Volvo, Stellantis, Taiwan Semiconductors, so on and so forth, they are already either building manufacturing capacity in the United States or has announced that they will start building factories in the United States to be able to circumvent or to avoid the tariff. That's it. I mean, if a product is built within the United States, which is the goal that Trump wants to achieve, then there is no tariff to be applied. Now, there are different responses from different countries. For example, many countries are applying retaliatory tariff on the United States. So that means, okay, if you put tariffs on us, we will put tariffs on you. And that has a risk of escalating, and I don't know where it's going to end up. Our Prime Minister Mark Carney, he says that he will apply retaliatory tariff, but you know, that is being unrealistic. We cannot retaliate to an economy as big as the United States. In addition, anytime that we put tariff on U.S. products, then what we're doing is taxing our citizens at even higher rates. So I'm sure there's going to be some meditation to see how they're going to apply those tariffs. For example, there are tariffs already on United States alcohol, on whiskey, on bourbon, or whatever. So, okay, so these are products that Canadian consumers can buy from other countries. So it's not going to be so painful, but there are other products that are necessary for the Canadian economy to survive. And I don't think it will be wise to put tariff on those products, because at the end of the day, it will be the end consumer who will be suffering for that. Now, there are countries such as Brazil who are benefiting greatly. Why? Okay, because now China is putting retaliatory tariff on U.S. products, particularly in agriculture. So, for example, if you are a soybean farmer in the United States, now it's going to be more difficult for you to sell your soybean to the Chinese market. But the soybean farmer in Brazil, well, he's not going to have this barrier to enter China, and they are going to be selling soybean more quantity and a higher price. So these things benefit other countries. Now, the response of countries such as Israel, for example. Israel decided to drop all tariff against the United States. So Israel is saying, okay, you tariffs off, but we will not tariff you at all, okay? And this is the response that the United States is seeking. Of course, this is not a response that every country can provide, but Israel is breaking rank with the hope to get some preferential treatment, and who knows, maybe they will get it. We will see about that. Now, let's be clear, there is some truth as well to what President Trump is saying. For example, Canada has high tariff on dairy products, on poultry products, on eggs, so on and so forth. And the tariff on dairy products, for example, is as high as 200%. So if you want to buy butter or milk coming from the United States, the price, if a gallon of milk costs in the United States, let's say $1, I really don't know how much it costs, then that 1 gallon of milk in Canada will be sold for $3, so 200%, and so on and so forth. This is a way that the Canadian government can keep the milk prices or dairy prices at an artificially high price here in Canada, and the farmers, the cow farmers, whatever, they can charge higher prices for the product. So yeah, tariff is supposed to benefit the local economy to the detriment of the consumer, and this is something that Canada is applying as well. So yes, we can point the finger to the United States, but we also have to look ourselves in the mirror. In addition to that, Canada has barrier between each province. So for example, the province of Ontario and the province of Quebec, they have tariff against each other. So to give you an example, if I go to the province of Ontario and I buy a whole bunch of cigarettes and I bring them to Quebec, I could be fined for that because there is considered contraband. There's no free trade between provinces, and this is something that we as Canadians, we have to take into consideration. In addition to that, there is the non-barrier tariff imposed by Quebec. So in Quebec, everything has to be in French. Even if the consumers prefer, let's say, a dishwasher or a refrigerator, it has to have all the signaling in French, otherwise it's not gonna be sold in Quebec, right? So that brings the cost higher, and even if some consumers will prefer to have a cheaper refrigerator that has all the lettering in English, no, just due to politics, language politics in Quebec, that has to be translated, it has to be processed according to French language criteria, and this is an artificial tariff imposed on the rest of the producers and on the Quebecer consumer. Now, I have to tell you that as a Canadian, I am very happy that we are being represented by Prime Minister Mark Carney as opposed to our previous Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau, people were calling him already woke Trudeau because he cares about things that the woke masses care about. He imposed a carbon tax on all Canada, something that Canadians didn't agree with, most Canadians anyway, and it seems that Justin Trudeau was there participating in all the Pride and Gays events, and after that and borrowing money to sustain the lifestyle that he thought that Canadians deserve. But you know, we cannot just borrow money, we have to also increase our productivity, and this is something that perhaps our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau didn't know how to do well. Now, Mark Carney, since that President Trump has a little bit more respect for him, and other leaders of the international community seems to have more respect for Mark Carney. If you notice, Trump hasn't referred to Canada anymore as the 51st state. So what a coincidence. President Trump hasn't referred to the Prime Minister of Canada as Governor of Canada anymore. So there is a new kind of respect, and there has to be something to say for the negotiation, dry negotiation, smart negotiation that Mark Carney is bringing to the table as opposed to the crazy, be happy Justin Trudeau. Now, to finish, let me share that I am highly critical of this tariff. This is something that, first of all, is going to harm the United States and is going to harm everybody else. Maybe the silver lining is that other countries will become more robust. For example, Canada will be forced to trade more with other partners, including China, which seems to be one of the other global economic powers out there. So China is going to become stronger. Canada is going to become stronger as well, because we will build some resilience and we will have some alternative trading partners that will diversify our source of revenues. And the same goes for European unions. They will be forced to trade with China and to trade more among each other, so they will build some resilience. I think this, instead of making the United States stronger, is going to make them weaker on the long run. Now, as for my personal portfolio and my investments, this also hurts very bad as well. The stock market has been going down practically since when Trump got elected. There was a little bump, and then it's been going down ever since then. And today, the day that markets are reacting to the tariff, is not a good day out there. Markets are all down, and we are going to be suffering. So I don't know, you may have a different opinion. Please share in the comments what is your prediction, what will be the outcome of this tariff. I think we're going to lose, and also I think that when there will be enough pressure in the U.S. economy and in the United States stock market, which is something that President Trump cares about deeply, then some of these tariffs will have to come down. Either that, or the public is going to rebel against the leadership of Donald Trump, and I don't know, they will start putting all kind of barriers among everything that he does from now on. So let's see what happens. That's it for today for me. Thank you so much for watching, and until soon. Peace.